All right, chapter 2 is going to focus on selections, and selections are that thing that we did to make it so we could only affect that figure in the last chapter and then turn it into a layer mask. So a selection, again, is a way of saying I want to work with just part of the image. Like we're going to make a selection for the sunglasses and the dog and the ball and the other dog, and then also this text, so we can throw that background behind it. While we're looking at making selections, we're going to also look at how we can transform them and then how we can convert them to layer masks. Once we have them in layer masks, we're also going to look at how we can add in objects to our design other than just that placed embedded that we did in the last chapter. While doing that, we're also going to look at free transform, which allows me to change the size, shape, and rotate any layer elements that I have added to my design. Okay, so to get started, you should navigate to Open or File Open or Command and Control R and find your Summer Dog Days start file. So like if I go to Open, for you guys, it'll probably be in your downloads or desktop. For me, it's in my working files for the textbook, and I can navigate to Chapter 2 selections. We can see then that I have a start file right here that I can load up for us to get going with. Now, when we look at this image, if we have good eyes, you can tell that there's something wrong with it. So I'm going to temporarily hide this text by clicking on the eyeball right here. Boop. And if we look at these tree branches, they don't look correct. So this is an AI-generated image, and it's an older one, so it's a little crunchier, and it's from Adobe Firefly, so it's definitely crunchier than it would be from some of the newer, better models. But this still holds true for some of even the newer, better models, where you can look at complex detail. And if that complex detail doesn't make sense, that can be an indicator that it is generated with AI. This textbook is mostly going to use stuff that I have made myself, so like photographs and things like that, some public domain images, so that'd be like the paintings last chapter, and then a handful of AI stuff so we can talk about what AI looks like and when it's an appropriate time to use it as a base image. All right, let's turn that text layer back on by poking it in the eye. Let's also make sure that we're in the same workspace. Mine is already reset, but if yours is not, come up to the top right, and you're going to click on the workspace button and make sure you have Essentials chosen. And then you'll go down here and choose Reset Essentials to make sure that your workspace looks like mine. It's like if you've accidentally moved stuff around and things aren't in the correct spot anymore, this is where you can go to Reset Essentials to make sure everything matches the demo. The first thing that we want to do is we want to add some sort of background to Summer Dog Days as like a stroke around it or a text or a shape around it. Now, there's other ways to do it, but this one's pretty good to also learn the gradient tool. So to make our border around our text, we're going to make a selection and transform it. So we have our layers over here, and the content for this top layer, and I can tell which one's active because it's highlighted in blue, is just this text. And like I can confirm that by poking the eyeball on and off. And so I want to select just that text and then make the selection bigger. To do that really quickly and easily, and we're going to do this a lot throughout this textbook, is we're going to hold down Command or Control and click on the layer preview right here. In this case, it's going to be that giant T. Notice that as I hold down the Command key in my case, because I'm on Apple, I get a little marquee box next to my hand telling me that I'm making a selection like with the marquee selection tool. So I'm going to hold down the Command or Control key. I'll click on this big T over here in the Layers panel. We can see that I now have a series of marching ants around my text telling me that it is selected. Then I want to make my selection bigger. So I'm going to come up to my menu bar and I'm going to go to Select. I'm going to go down to Modify, and I'm going to go to Expand. In Expand, I'm going to type in 26 and click OK. And we can see that the text has indeed expanded out the selection a little bit. Now I want to add in a gradient behind it. So I'm going to make the gradient tool active, G for gradient, or I can click on it over here in my toolbar. Up at the top, I'm going to click the little arrow for the drop down. I'm going to click Open Basics by clicking on the arrow. Not Basics. I want, what color is it going to be in? I think it's actually oranges. Where are you? Oranges. Yeah, there it is. And I'll scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to pick this second to last option, this nice yellow to pink. If yours doesn't look like mine, by the way, you can click this little gear icon, and you can be like large thumbnails. That makes it a little bit easier to see what they are. You could do list. So like I usually have mine set up as list, but this got reset when I reset my workspace. But if yours doesn't look like mine, you want small thumbnail, and that'll give you an appearance similar to this. And I'm going to grab the second one. You can see that that's the gradient that's currently loaded up. And then I want that gradient to run from side to side. So I'm going to left click roughly over here on the left, and I'm going to drag over. While I'm dragging over, it's going to be really hard to keep this straight. So right now I'm holding down left click. I'm going to add shift to that. So that makes it easy to go straight across. I'm going to drag about to the far side. I'm going to release my left click mouse, and then I'm going to release my shift. Now, just like what we had happen with us with the background and the figure in chapter 1, my fill is in front of my text. So I'm going to click on my text layer and drag up to put it over that for my layer order. Things that you don't want to do is you want to click on the eyeball because it'll hide it. And then if for whatever reason you're clicking on the gradient to move it up and down instead of the text, make sure you're not clicking on the layer mask or the layer link when moving it back and forth. There's other ways to add this, but again, like this is a good way so that we can look at this quick gradient tool. All right, let's add in our first image, which is going to be that kind of happy golden retriever picture. So I'm going to come up to File, and I'm going to go to Placed Embedded. I'll navigate to my happy dog file. So where are you? Happy dog. And I'll click Place. And when I'm throwing it in, we can see that it's coming in pretty small. And so I'm going to be a little naughty because this is pretty small to stretch as far as we're going to. We're going to do it anyway. We're going to make it quite a bit bigger, and then we want to tie it into a position. Now, I can specify this either by kind of clicking and dragging and trying to eyeball it, but it'd be better to do it by the number for a consistent result. So I can also type it in up here at the top in my tool option bar. So we have my X position and my Y position. We have our width and our height, and then we also have angle. As long as this chain link right here is turned on, I can modify width or height, and it will modify both. So in fact, go ahead and pick width or height. And if that chain link darkened, I'm going to type in 340 to get that 340%. For my position, I am going to type in 375. And then if yours is currently saying something like inches or millimeters or centimeters instead of px, all you need to do is then type in that px to tell it that that's the format that you want it to be in. It's like I don't want to, but I could do like 2 inches here, and it will convert that to pixels for me rather than trying to figure out that on my own. So again, for my X position, I'm going to do 735. And then if it's not in px, you'll need to type in that px. Then you can hit Tab to move to the next one, or you can click into it yourself. And I'm going to type in 875 px. To drop that into position. We can see that my size got reset. So I'm going to pump that back up to 340. So I've got 735, 875, and 340%. And I'll click the check mark or done or double click to say that I am happy with that placement. Okay, so now we want to remove this background of Council Bluffs, Iowa from Mr. Lee right here, the golden retriever. So our goal is always to be as lazy as possible. So I'm just going to click Remove Background right here in my contextual taskbar, and let's see how good of a job it does. Honestly, that's pretty good. If we zoom in, so I'm going to hold Z for Zoom tool, or I'll click on this magnifying glass. I can then zoom in and out by scrubby zooming. It's called clicking and dragging back and forth. Similarly, I can just click once to zoom in. I can hold down Alt key or Option key to zoom out. And then I've got these buttons up here that allow me to do things like fit and fill screen for my design. So I'm just going to scrubby zoom in a little bit. And we look, we can see we have some fringing around here on the fur. If we come down to the front, we can see there's still a little bit of the background present. So we're going to further refine this mask from our selection. Go ahead and hit Command or Control 0 to fit it back on your screen, or click the Fit Screen button up here at the top. Now, this is pretty fancy, so we're just going to pop in and out of this quickly. If you get into advanced Photoshop, you will want to use this particular tool quite a bit, and it is the Select and Mask. To enter a Select and Mask with this layer active and the mask active, I can come up to Select. Oops, clicked off of it. I can come up to Select and go to Select and Mask, or you should just be able to double-click on it and then be able to enter Select and Mask. And when I say it, I mean this black and white preview. In Select and Mask, I'm going to come up to the top and I'll switch my view mode to on layers. There it is. And that gives me an idea of what it's going to look like once this is done. And then I've got some settings I want to shift over. So we're going to go to Global Refinements. And in Global Refinements, we're just going to bring that edge in. Well, actually, first let's come up here and try our lazy button. So we got this Refine Hair button, lazy button. Okay, we got some little fringing up here now. Let's see if we can pull that off of this shift edge. So I'm just going to take this shift edge and do -50 in there. And that brings it in quite a bit. And that looks pretty good. And then we'll click OK. And I got a little bit of fringing in there that I don't like. So I'm going to grab B for brush tool. And I'm going to get a black brush. So I can see I'm just flipping through my colors. I've got black. And I'm just going to paint just like so to hide that little bit of fringing. And now we zoom in, we can see that the fur looks much better for our scene. Okay, let's add in the sunglasses. To add in the sunglasses, let's just open them and take a look at them. So I'm going to come up to File, and I'm going to go to Open. And we can see that we've got sunglasses, and it says this by a Jashki wiki thing. We'll talk about that here in a second. We've got these sunglasses. And what these sunglasses are sunglasses shared under the Creative Commons with Attribution license on Wikipedia. So there's a type of copyright sharing where you have to say where you got it from. You have to give credit where credit is due. That is the CC BY right here. And they were created by somebody named Jashki from Wikipedia. So Jashki from Wikipedia, thank you very much for these sunglasses. They're really handy for this lesson on how to use CC BY. On these sunglasses, I want to try to remove background. And this is going to be an example of where Photoshop has gotten better. So it used to be that when I would come over and click one of these buttons, it wouldn't work correctly. So like I could click Select Subject, and now we get the full sunglasses. Previously, it would miss this interior part, and we'd have to figure out a good way to grab it. So I'm going to click Deselect here for a second. Let's talk about our different ways that we could select this if Select Subject hadn't worked. Like I could come up to my marquee selection, and this literally just draws a box. And I can modify how it draws a box by switching from New to Overlap, and that allows me to overlap stuff. Or I could say Exclude, and that allows me to exclude an area by drawing over it. Or Intersect, only keep the part where the two new boxes touch. And these are all pretty handy. Usually you're just going to do New Selection. With it, we also have the elliptical marquee tool, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a circle or ellipse. We have the single row marquee tools, which I don't think I've ever used outside of pixel art, but they're here. We have our kind of free-drawn selection tool. So we have the newish selection brush. Now my brush is going to look large because I've enlarged my mouse to make it easier for you guys to see, but it's exactly what it sounds like. I draw the area in pink, becomes a selection. We also have the lasso, which is a freehand selection tool. So I draw a line and anything within it becomes a selection. And then I still have those ways of modifying it up here in my tool option bar. I have the polygonal version of it, which is just a line version. So I click, release, click, release, click, release, click, release, and click, and I can draw straight line selections. And then we have the magnetic lasso. So like way back in the day, one of the ways that we might have done this selection is to grab the magnetic lasso, and we'd click at this edge and release and kind of drag along it. And the magnetic lasso tool will find that contrast line and try to draw a selection for us. Like now we just hit a button. You know, when I was learning Photoshop back in high school, this would have been the tool we would have used along with the magic wand tool to make this selection. Moving down the list, we have Object Select, which will automatically detect anything within a scene and try to figure out what you want selected. So you can see that it thought for a minute. That thinking will be displayed up here. And now I can just mouse over it and click on it to make my selection. Notice that I still have those add and subtract modes. I also have ways for trying to find people and other objects based on it. We also have Quick Select, which is similar to that, except it's a brush. And anything I paint over, it tries to quickly figure out what I'm trying to select. We can see that it added in a little bit too much up here, so I would need to use these different add and subtract modes to try to get a cleaner selection. Finally, we have the magic wand tool, which selects stuff based on similarity. This is out on those really old selection tools. It's really handy for pulling stuff actually out of something like a white background, and they would have to clean up where that edge is. Again, notice that it's not quite perfect. We got a little bit of blupping down there. And this is where Photoshop really has gotten better fast. It's like selections used to be very difficult. Now we just click Select Subject. And my sunglasses are selected. Again, a year ago, it actually would miss this lens right here. So it's kind of interesting to see how quickly it gets better. Now, just like in Microsoft Word, where I can copy and paste text between things, I can copy and paste images between things. So I've got this part of my image selected. So like this is where I've selected like half a paragraph or something. I can go up to Edit, Copy, or hit Command or Control C. I've got these two tabs up here representing my different documents. I'm going to click into my first one, and hit Command or Control V to paste it in. We no longer need the sunglasses one open anymore, so I can click the X to close it so it's not junking up my workspace. Now, immediately you can see that we have a quick little problem, which is my sunglasses are facing the wrong way. So to flip them around, I'm going to hit Command or Control T or go to Edit. Where is it? Edit, Free Transform. It gives me my free transform stuff, and I can click this little flipper button to flip them around. Then I'm going to rotate them a little bit, drag them over the face, and maybe make them a little bit bigger. And that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to double click to say I'm done in free transform. Now, there's a way that we can blend stuff into a scene, and we'll talk a lot about this next chapter, but we can blend stuff into a scene using something called blending modes. So if this sunglasses layer active over here in my layers panel where it says normal, I'm going to click and I'll pick multiply. And again, more on what this is doing exactly in the next chapter. I'm going to adjust my glasses placements just slightly. I'm also going to go over and clean up my layer labels. So right now this is layer 1. So this is sunglasses. This is hero dog or dog. We'll leave summer dog days. That's fine. This is my text backer. And I've got my stuff appropriately labeled now. Now for this to look really good, what I want to do is I want to tuck those sunglasses behind that little bit of the fur. So this little part of the ear part needs to go behind his head. And this is where we're going to do something fancy. So this will be the hardest selection we make all book. There'll be another difficult-ish one here in a second, but this is the hardest one. So I want to bring back the selection I made for the dog. To bring the selection back for the dog, rather than command clicking the dog layer, which would just give me that whole image, including the background that I'm hiding, I'm going to command click that layer mask I made, that black and white thing. So I'm going to hold down Command or Control if I'm on Windows. See, I get a little marquee thing, and I'll click on that mask. And notice that it brings back up the dog. Now, unfortunately, if we come up to the sunglasses layer, so I just clicked on it to make it active, and I click layer mask, we can see that it's kind of doing a bit of both of what I want it to do. Like I'm keeping this front part, but the part I want to keep over here is gone, and the part that I want to hide is still there. So we need to modify this selection in order to blend those glasses into the scene, to really kind of hide them behind the dog's head. So with that initial selection made, I'm going to come over to the invert selection button. Boop. And by the way, if this is confusing, I'm going to run through it one more time after breaking down each step. I'll do it in steps without any commentary. Now we can see that when we hit layer mask, that the part that I want to keep over here is still there. The front part's missing, but I've got a perfect edge right there. Look how nice that tucks behind there. So like we're halfway there. I undid that so we can bring it. So I made my selection, I inverted it, and now I need to add to my selection this part back. So I'm going to come over to my tool, or I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 down, and I'm going to click and hold and grab the lasso tool. I want to add to my selection. So I don't want new, I don't want remove, and I don't want intersect. I want add. And to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, Command plus. If I hold down the space bar, I get this hand tool that allows me to move these sunglasses front and center. So space bar those front and center. And I'm going to draw in a selection, and I can be really lazy, because what we can think about right now is like what I'm really selecting is just the sunglasses. So like it's not going to affect the dog. It's not going to affect anything else. So I can be super lazy except for right about here. So I'm going to click right above his eyebrow and just click around. I'm dragging right now, super lazy, 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 lazy. Right here, I want a nice little clean line, lazy. Be a little careful right there, and then release. And I've got that selection. So right now, this part right here will be hidden when I hit layer mask, and that looks great. Okay, one more time without all the commentary. So here's the sunglasses. I need the dog. Command click or Control click the dog layer mask right here. I need to invert my selection. So invert select button right here, or Command Shift I does the same thing. 1, 2, 3 lasso tool. So click and hold to get the lasso. Click right here and just super lazy. Careful right about here, and a little care right yonder. I've got this area selected. I've got my sunglasses layer active, and I can tell again what's active because what's blue. and I click layer mask the box with the circle in it in either of these two spots, and I have the sunglasses tucked. Again, hardest selection we will make in the textbook. And that looks pretty good. Next, let's add in our element of the tennis ball. So let's look at another way that we can add in the tennis ball. So far we've done file, placed, embedded, and we've also done copy paste. So let's do something similar to copy paste by going to file, open. Let's go to our tennis ball image. Let me see where you are. There you are. And when we look at this image of the tennis ball, again, if you have slightly credulous, like you're willing to disbelieve things you look at immediately, this tennis ball looks very wrong because this is an AI generated tennis ball. And we can see like the lines don't make any sense and the fuzz is too strong. Now, like if I just tried to do that select subject thing again, we'll end up with a bunch of that fluff from that nastiness from the tennis ball. So like I want a nice clean selection of this tennis ball. So I'm going to use a circle or elliptical marquee tool to get a perfect circle selection of this tennis ball. To make it easier, I'm going to hit Command or Control plus to zoom in some. I'll hold down spacebar to move this nice front and center. This will be nice and easy for me to work with. I'm going to come up to the top left towards my toolbar and go 1, 2 tools down. I'll click and hold, and I'm going to grab the elliptical marquee tool. I'll need either new or add selection. We'll just go ahead and leave it a new selection to draw in our ellipse. And we're going to add a selection of this circle. Now, when we're drawing selections, there's a couple of hotkeys that we can hold down that do different things. So like if I just draw a selection, it draws an oval, it kind of slops around, it draws from the top left corner. I'm hitting Command Z to undo that. Now, if I hold down the Alt or Option key, it now draws from the center of where I clicked. If I hold down just Shift, it draws a perfect circle. While I'm drawing a selection, if I add spacebar, rather than changing the size of the selection, I can now move this selection around with my mouse and then release the spacebar to continue changing the size. So Alt or Option, draw from center, Shift, draw a perfect circle, and then spacebar, move a selection after I've started drawing it. So what I want to do is I want to draw a circle from the center of this and then dial in the position with spacebar. So we're going to hold on a lot of keys in order, and it's going to be a little complex. So I'm going to start by holding down Alt, Option, Shift on my keyboard, and you're going to want to probably hold that down with like your thumb or pinky or whatever, because we're going to add spacebar to it here in a second. So I've got Alt and Shift held down. I'm going to click roughly center, left click, and I'm going to drag, and I get my circle. And as you can see, as I'm dragging out, my circle is slightly off place. So right now, again, I'm holding down Alt, Shift, and left click. I'm adding spacebar to what I'm holding down. And I'm bringing my selection a little bit further into place. I'm going to release spacebar. So currently holding down left click, Alt, Option, and Shift. And I'm going to make my selection slightly smaller. I like the way this looks, so I'm happy with it. So I'm going to release left click mouse, and then I'm going to release my keyboard. Now, the order of holding things down is important because what I'm doing is modifying my mouse click. So like if I release the keyboard before my mouse click isn't modified anymore and it throws off the selection. All right, let's make a layer mask. Boop. And let's say that for whatever reason, I wanted to preserve that background image. Because like when we added in the sunglasses, notice that it's just the sunglasses in here. We don't have that white background or shadow anymore. If I wanted to save that for a less destructive edit, I can't just copy and paste this over. But I want to keep this layer mask. So how do I do that from a second image that I've been working on? To do it, we're going to drag the layer in. So I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to go to Arrange, and I'm going to do 2 up vertical. Notice now that instead of being in 2 separate, instead of being in one tab group, they're now in their own little window. So I now have my tennis ball tab. I'll hit Command 0, so it's a little bit easier to, or zoom out. It's a little bit easier to see the tennis ball. And we have my dog days image one. And we can tell which one is active because it's highlighted in whiter text rather than gray text. And my layers panel changes. To bring this over, I'm going to make the tennis ball tab active. So I have the tennis ball over here in my layers panel. Now, to get it over here, I'm not going to click on the eye. I'm not going to click on the layer mask. I'm going to click right here where it's currently saying layer 0. That's going to grab the whole thing. I'm going to drag it over the dog image and release. And that adds it in as a layer. And I'll go ahead and relabel that tennis ball. I no longer need my tennis ball document open, so I'll click the X to close it. I don't need to save those changes, so I will click Don't Save. That said, there's actually a really good spot to save this image, but right now if we go to save, we'll overwrite our initial start file. So let's make a new copy of this so our start file is still there. So I'm going to go to File, and rather than Save, I'm going to do Save As. And rather than Start, maybe I'll label this like Book or Turn In or Done or something else descriptive that sets it apart from that start file that still tells me what it is. This way, at any point, I can come back and open up my start file. If my, oops, those are my sunglasses. I can open my start file and still have access to my original document without having to download it. Again, I can come back if this gets hopelessly borked. All right, let's add in our other dog image. And to add it in, we're going to look at one more way. So in my case, I'm going to go to Finder. For Windows people, you'll go to File Explorer, but the process should be pretty much the same. You'll navigate to wherever you have your files saved. And we are looking for the dog making the dumb face at the beach. This is Bree right after she's fully recovered from getting spayed. You can see like shave right there. So it's her first day back to the beach in San Francisco. She's having a great time. And I'm just going to click and drag it over the image. And there's like a little plus sign on Apple. So that tells me that I'll just drop it right in. Like what we did with the other dog image, I want to increase the size and change the placement. So under width or height, as long as this is locked, because they both need to be 240, we'll make her quite a bit bigger. And then for my X and Y position, for X, I'm going to do 895. And for Y, I'm going to do 970. I'm putting her down kind of here in the corner. I'll double click to say that I'm done with that placement. Let's remove the background. To remove the background, like if we just do it right off the bat, it's going to make some mistakes. Wow, okay. Well, so different from spring this year is this now is fixed. So like before it would leave this little bit of sand right here in front of her foot. So like this keeps getting better and better. So like what we used to have to do is we would go to select subject and it would keep in this piece of sand and we would grab the lasso and go to minus mode and subtract out that little piece of sand. But thank you, Adobe. Your software keeps getting better and gets better very fast, which is why these videos for you in my classes are getting remade each week. Although we can see it did make one mistake, so it's taking out her tooth. So let's add in that little bit of tooth again. So make the lasso tool active, and then we're going to pick the add mode up here, and we're going to lasso in that little piece of tooth to bring it back in. Then we'll click the layer mask button to hide the background, and we can see our dog in place. Also notice how blurry she looks compared to the rest of the scene, and that's because we made her quite large in relation to the original resolution for her. And then the picture was also slightly blurry because she was running pell-mell. So like this is where our kind of stuff can end up a little bit in trouble. Let's grab the Move tool. So V for Move tool on your keyboard or click on it up so. With auto select turned on, you should be able to click on the tennis ball and move it between the two dogs. So it feels a little humorous. Finally, we want to add a border to our Summer Dog Days collage, and we're going to add in a similar gradient to it. To add in our border, I'm going to hit Command minus to zoom out a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And then I can select everything by coming up to Select All. So that gives me a selection at the bounds of my canvas. To modify that selection, I'm going to come up to Select, Modify, and then the adequately named border. I'm going to put in 50 in this case. We can see that brings it in a little bit. I'll make the graduation tool active again, or hit G on my keyboard to do so. And I'm going to click and drag roughly in the same spot I did before. So I'm going to click over here on the left. After I've started clicking, I'm going to start holding down Shift so it's nice and straight. And I'm going to get to the far edge. And I'm going to release my mouse and then release my keyboard. Notice that it automatically turned that selection to a layer mask for us. Very handy. It did the same thing down here when we had our text selection. Go ahead and go up to File, Save, and this chapter looks good for done or turn in.